G'day and welcome to another video. In today's lesson we're going to learn how to make this really cute fingerless mitts. It is a really simple pattern, it's ridged and doesn't use any increasing or decreasing, so it's great for a beginner. There is also a hat that goes with this video and I will put the link that you need in the description box. You could also click on the more info tab just here and that will take you to the video tutorial for the hat. There will be a written pattern located on my website, so I put the link that you need for that one. This project is made with Red Heart yarn, and I would like to say a huge thank you to the sponsor, redheart.com, for supplying this yarn. Also, if you would like more free written patterns, go and check out redheart.com. So let's get started on the lesson. For our supplies, we're going to need 2 stitch markers. These are optional, but I would recommend using them just to keep count of your stitches. You could use a locking stitch marker, or if you don't have any, you could use 2 scrap pieces of yarn. You want to make sure they're probably about 4 inches. You're going to need a yarn needle with a large eye so that we can thread our yarn through. A pair of scissors, a crochet hook to go with the yarn. This yarn recommends a 5mm crochet hook, but I want to have mine with a bit of a tighter tension, so I'm going to be using a 4.5mm. However, I do have loose tension, so if you don't have loose tension, so you have like normal tension, I could recommend a 5mm, which is it's a H size crochet hook. So you just want to go 1 or 2 sizes smaller than what's recommended for your yarn, just so that it gives you a bit of a nicer tension. You're going to need 1 ball of Red Heart Softs Baby Steps. This is the same yarn that I use for the hat, and I will put a little link up here so that you can go and check out the hat. This is the same yarn that we use, so I'm just using up my leftovers. I had 2 balls of this and I've made the hat for around about a 5-year-old. Fits about a 50 to 55 centimetre head. And I'm also making these 2 gloves for, the gloves are for me, and I've only got 2 balls and I've still got all that left. So easily get 1 set of fingerless mitts out of one of these balls. You may even be able to get 2 kid sets of fingerless mitts out of this ball. So yeah, because look, the other one's just off the side here, and that's how much I've got left. I've got that, and I've made one around about a 5-year-old hat and a set of fingerless mitts for me, so it goes a long way. I love this yarn, it's really soft. It's, how much is it? It's 100 grams or 3.5 ounces, and it's 165 meters or 180 yards. It's lovely and soft, doesn't split. And yeah, really like it, so that's good. So I'm popping that aside. If you're going to use a double knit or a 8-ply yarn, I think this is about a worsted. It's a light worsted, I would say. It's not really thick. It's not as thick as the Super Saver. But if you're going to use a DK or an 8-ply yarn, I would recommend using a 3.5 crochet hook. So grab our yarn. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a slip knot, and you can make your slip knot however you like. There's different ways to do that, but you can do yours however you like. And we are going to make a chain. So what we're going to do is decide how long we want our fingerless mitts. So I'm going to grab one that I've already done. So we crochet across and back, so we crochet backwards and forwards like that. That's how this glove is made. So what I did is I looked at my hand and I thought, where do I want my glove to go? So I normally have it up to my knuckles and then sort of just down past my wrist. So if I just grab this, line that up with my knuckles and just pull that round, that's going to fit my hands. I do have really small hands. I've been told I have children hands. I've got really long fingers, but they're thin, and so are my wrists. So I'll just measure this, but don't take this as an adult size because apparently it's not. So it's about 6.5 inches, which is 6.5, around about 16.5 centimeters. So it's about 16.5 or 6.5 inches. And then across, that is, would you believe it's about the same, so it's almost square. But my wrists are skinny, so I'll measure my wrists for you. My wrists are about 6 inches around. But like I said, you can make this any size you like. So basically you take the measurement from where you want the glove to sit, and then we keep crocheting until it's big enough to wrap around our arm. So I'm going to pop this aside. So because I have to make an identical one to the other one I've done, I started with 32 chains. So I would recommend 32 chains for an adult, for a small adult. If you're going to do child size, you might want to just drop off a few stitches. But like I said, if you've got an arm you can measure, then go for it. You just make it to the length that you want. So if I hadn't have already made the other one, I would have just made a chain. Let's pretend I haven't made the other one. So we're going to make a chain. Whoops. It's lovely and smooth, this yarn, but it does sort of slip off the crochet hook if you're not paying attention. So I'm going to look at that and say, is that about long enough to go to where I want it on my hand? So this is really awkward to show you on camera. So you'll get your chain and put it where you want your glove to come to. So I'm going to say about there, and then grab the other end of your chain and then say, okay, that's going to come all the way down here if I make this into a glove. So it's actually, for what I want, it was too long. So I have no idea how many chains there are there. Okay, so, but if that's how you want the length of your glove, then go for it. That's what you want to do. So you're just basically making the chain the length that you want, and then you want to write down how many you've done because you want to make one that's identical. So I'm just going to go and do 32 chains. That's 32, so I can match it to the other one. Once we have the amount of chains we're going to work with, we're going to single crochet into the second chain from the crochet hook. Now we are going to need to go through 2 loops of the chain. Just for this project, I normally do go under 2 loops for a chain, but I know some people go under 1 loop, some people work into the back bump, etc. So for this project you will need to go through 2 loops, because when we do our sewing together it creates a fake rib, and if we don't do that then you can tell where you've joined it together. So we don't count the one that's on our crochet hook. That's 1 and that's 2. And looking at the chain you'll see that there's 1 loop at the top there. But what we want to do is go underneath 2 loops and go into there, so that when we go through we've got 2 loops on the crochet hook. So we're going to do a single crochet and we're going to go in the second chain from the crochet hook. So under that first one, under this second one, and through that, and you'll see 2 loops on the top. Work a single crochet and we want to do that into the next 2 chains. Once you've done 1, it's a lot easier to see where to go. So see how there's a hole there? We're not going in there because we'd only get 1 loop. We're just going to flip this loop up there and go underneath it. It's really hard to show you detail. Can you see how I'm going to go underneath? And then you've got 2 loops on the top. So I'm going to do that one more time for a single crochet. You're basically lifting this loop up towards the top So you're lifting, so you're going under that loop. See how now there's a hole on the bottom? So the little hole, you're going to go into there. I'm hoping this is making sense. Going underneath this loop and then going in there. Okay, so that's, I'm just going to do that again because that's really loose. So you want 3 single crochet all together. If you want to change the amount that you do, this is going to be the band that goes around your wrist and around at the top near your knuckles. So if you want to change the length of that, you can do, you can do more single crochets. So just bear that in mind. You can easily change the pattern, and I'm going to put a stitch marker in there because that's just going to remind me that when I come back across this row or the next row, it's going to remind me to change stitches. So in the next lot of stitches, until we have 3 from the end, so 1, 2, 3, I'm going to grab this stitch marker. This is just to remind me to tell you what to do. So in the last 3 stitches we work single crochet as well. Again, if you want to change the amount of stitches that's here, then go for it. I think around, so let's just say this is going to go around our knuckles area. I would say 3 is plenty. You may want to use more down this end. But just to keep it simple for this pattern, I think sticking to the same number on each end is easier to remember. So working through both loops still, we're going to do a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, and the half double crochet is what creates this awesome rib. So we start creating it on the next row. So it's half double crochet all the way across until you have 3 chains from the end. So pause the video and I'll meet you when we are there. I'm up to my stitch marker, so that means I've got 3 chains left, so that's reminded me to tell you what to do. So in the last 3 chains we're going to work single crochet under 2 loops of the chain. If you don't normally work it that way, it might feel a bit weird, but for this project you've just got to do it. So we get to the end, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work around. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch. From now on, until we have the length of our project, we are going to work through the back loop of all the stitches. So the first one's a little bit tricky to see because it's our first stitch and we've got to like turn it towards us. So turn it towards you, or if I turn it so you're looking at the top, you'll notice the 2 V's. You're going to be working into the back stitch. This one here is our front stitch and that one there is our back because it's at the back. If we turn it so it's like it's supposed to be, it's at the back. So we're going to work our crochet into there. So we're going to put our crochet hook back on our, going to put our yarn back on our crochet hook, and we're going to go into the first stitch into the back loop. So let me just grab our yarn so I'm all okay. So the chain 1 didn't count as a stitch and we do need to crochet into that very first stitch there. So we're going to go in the back loop. So this is the front loop and the back loop is there. We're going to work through that. Just work a single crochet like you normally would. So the only difference is we're just going into the back loop. So we've got another one and then 1 more single crochet through the back loop. So that's our 3 stitches and that creates the band. I'm just going to put my stitch marker back in and this will just remind me. And for this sort of project, when you've got to change stitches, just get into the habit of just checking like 1, 2, 3, yes, I've done my single crochets. It's really easy to do the wrong stitch and then your pattern's thrown out and it's sometimes hard to get it to go right again. So into the back loop of the half double crochets here, we're going to change to our change to our half double crochet stitch. My teeth are not in properly today. And we're just going to work a regular half double crochet, but we're doing it through the back loop only. And we're going to do this all the way until we are 3 stitches from the end. And we should have a stitch marker to remind us that we're up the end. So you'll see, because we're going into the back loop only, you may not be able to see it quite yet, but it's creating this ridge between my fingers there. So we're going to go all the way across until we get to the next stitch marker. I'm up to the end here, and my stitch marker is reminding me that I need to change stitches. Sometimes you might put your stitch marker in the wrong stitch, so just make sure that you've got 3 on the end. So I can do a single crochet, back loop only. We need 3 of those. Chain 1, turn your work. You can put the stitch marker back in after you've done those stitches, but because we're not doing many stitches on the end here, I personally don't need it to remind me. So back loop, and we're going to work 3 single crochets through the back loops. And now I'm going to put my stitch marker back in, because I know once I come back across that whole row I probably will forget. So pop that back in. And we're going to repeat what we did on the previous row. So now we do half double crochet all the way across until we get to our stitch marker, and then we do our single crochets through the back loop only. So it's pretty easy. So it's half double crochet. I'm going to show you how to do this row. I'm sure you already know what to do, but just in case. So it's half double crochet, back loop only, until we get to our next stitch marker. So pause the video and I'll meet you there. So I've up to my stitch marker, so I'm going to take that out. And I should have 3 stitches left. With 3 stitches you can just give it a quick visual and you can tell that you've only got 3. So we're going to do those. And then you would chain 1, turn and go back across and repeat what we did on the previous row. So you're going to keep going. And as I say on TV, here's one I prepared earlier. And you're just going to keep going until this part here is the width that you need it. So I'm just going to put all this aside. And to know the width, you could get someone to measure around their wrist, and I would get them to measure around the knuckle section, because that's generally the widest part of your hand. And if you measure it to fit the wrist, it's probably not going to fit around here. So where's our yarn? So we started down here and we went up to the top. So you can turn it around and then we can see if it fits my hand. So I'm just putting my hand on top with the edge of it lining up to the edge of my fingers there. And I'm putting it where I'd want it to sit. So my knuckles are there and it's lined up. Grab that side. And don't forget the crochet stretches, so you can go around and you can see that that meets down the bottom there. So it's definitely going to go around and meet down the bottom because that's narrower. But what we want to do before we completely finish, the very last row that we do is worked through both loops of our crochet. So I'll just pop this aside and I'll grab the other one that we were just working on. Let's pretend that that's finished and it is up to the size that we need. And I'm sure you know how to do this part, but I'm going to show you just in case you don't. So this would be as big as we need it, and then the very last row is through both loops only. So you're going into the stitch and you're going to get 2 loops at the top of your work. We're just going to go through, work your single crochet, and then change to your half double crochet, still working through 2 loops this time, and then half double crochet across. When you get to your single crochet, just go through both loops and do your single crochet. When we finish off our yarn, we're going to finish off with about, I've got heaps of yarn here, I think I've got too much, but I would suggest at least 12 inches probably 14 inches, which is about 35 centimeters, I think. And we're going to finish off, so we're just going to, I don't think I've finished, no I haven't. So we're going to grab the strand, go through the loop, and then just pull that through. And that's just going to finish off that one. We want to make sure that our end tail, so the bit we've just finished off, is on the right hand side, and our starting edge is at the front. If your yarn is attached over this side, then maybe just finish it off and then rejoin it over on the right hand side. Oops. Remove that stitch marker. So you want to fold it in half like that, and then we want to put our starting edge at the front. So this is where we very first started, our first row. That's the yarn tail there. That's at the front, and then the last row that we did is at the back of our work, and we're going to stitch it together. And I don't know if yours is going to be different to mine, if you've done a different amount of rows, like an odd or an even amount. I don't even know what I did, but when I look at mine, so I've got my starting edge at the front, the last row at the back, and when I look at the stitches, the V's are the right way up, but this is actually the inside of our work. So if we look at it, the V's are upside down, and that's the inside of my work. So depending on which way you want your V's to be facing, so when you've got it on your hand, you want your V's to be facing this way. We're going to have to, which is what I want, we're going to have to slightly adjust where we put our thumb hole opening. If we put our thumb, so this is the inside, sorry, this is the outside of our work, because we're going to sew it right sides together. So this is the outside of our work, my V's upside down, so I want my thumb hole down here rather than up there. I'm hoping that makes sense. So we're going to stitch it together. We'll stitch it together a little bit, and then we'll see where we want to put our thumb hole. So for the very first stitch, we're going to go through, my yarn's at the back there, I'm going to go through this front layer and just go into the corner. I'm going to try and go under 2 loops so that I don't pull a big hole, and then I'm going to go under 2 loops at the back. And this is just to secure our work, so we can just start it off. So on our front piece, we've got these unworked loops here. I hope you can see those. We've got one there, one there, one there, and they're like little bumps at the top. Might be able to see them better there, so like little bumps. I'm going to go through the unworked loop, which is there, and the back loop of the piece at the back. So you're going into the second back loop, because we've already done our first one, into the second back loop, so it's the loop closest to the back of, closest to this side at the back, and we're going to go through there. I'm going to go through the unworked loop, and then the back loop of our work. So this is the front loop here, but we want to skip that one and go through the back. And by doing it this way, this creates a fake rib, so that when we turn it the other side, so we turn it the other way, inside out, right side in, I don't know. When we turn it the other way, it'll have a fake rib. This is the 3rd time I filmed this part, so I feel like I'm going a bit crazy. So as we go, we want to, like I said, decide where we want our thumb hole. So I'm going to just do that bit. So I'm going to turn it inside out, and then I'm going to have to turn it back the other way to sew it up. And you're going to decide which way you want your glove to go. So looking at that now, the V's are upside down. So if I turn it the other way, so I'm just going to flip it over, the V's are the right way, and I want those V's when I look at my gloves. I want the V's to be the right direction, so going like that. So I'm going to put my hand in, and I'm just going to grab this bit so it's kind of pretend sewn. So when I look at my gloves, the V is the right way up. Can you see how that V is the right way up, as if you would write it like a proper V? So that's how I want mine to sit. So I'm going to put, so we've done a little bit, so that might even be enough. I'm just checking. I'm just going to see where I want it to sit on my hand. I normally put the top layer up to sort of where my knuckles are, just above. And we want to sew until we get to the base of the thumb, which is around here, I would say. So I'm going to stitch it to about there. So I'm going to grab a stitch marker. Stitch markers are my best friend. They remind me to do everything, because I'm the person that will just sew it and sew it all the way closed and then realise there's nowhere for my thumb. Okay, we've got a stitch marker that has escaped. I'm going to use this one. And then I'm going to go to the top, and that's going to be joined about there. And then you want to skip your thumb where it's coming out, and then around about where your thumb is there, or where your thumb stops, that's where you're going to put the other stitch marker. So make sure it's in the right spot. This is really hard to show you. I'm doing like a contortionist move behind the camera here. So it'll sit about there, and then about there is where I want to restart stitching. And then we'll stitch close that part to create this part of the glove. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. I need to turn it back the other way because it's right side out at the moment. We want it wrong sides out. So we're going to flip that back over. So we've got the first row at the front and then the last row that we did at the back still. So the way we had it before. And I'm coming along and I'm just stitching it up the way we did before. So after, I'm not pulling that really snug, but after a little while I'm grabbing hold of this bit and then pulling this, and then that just cinches that up. Alright, so we're up to our stitch marker, so I'm going to do that stitch that I marked. And what you can choose to do is, which is what I might do, is I might finish it off here and then rejoin the yarn for the next section. First of all, I'm just going to make sure that our seam looks nice. Yes, we've created a fake rib here, so looking good. Hallelujah. Do a happy dance because, like I said, third time I'm filming. Got it right. What is it? Third time lucky, literally. So we're going to pull our yarn. I'm going to secure that off. I'm going to just do that one more time. And while my yarn is still attached, I'm just going to sew that end in. It's only when the camera's running that any of this happens. All this mess. Oh dear. I'm going to cut that off. And then we're going to go and put it back the way we had it. So starting row at the front, last row at the back. I'm going to line up the ends. And then where I've got my stitch marker, I'm going to put my yarn through. I'm actually going to go the one below. You know what, I might go through 2 loops at the back for that one, just to make sure it's nice and secure, because you don't want to pull out a big loop when you're wearing it. So I'm going to go through that twice just to secure my yarn. Got hold of that tail so it doesn't go all the way through. Oh, sorry, I was grabbing the wrong tail. I was supposed to be grabbing that one. Oh dear. You know what? Sometimes filming goes really smooth, and other times it doesn't. So I can grab this. And I can just stitch up the remaining stitches. So, get where I am. Snug. I'm just going to turn it other way. You didn't really have to turn it because it's the same. You could just put that. You just want to make sure that hole's not too tight. Sometimes I've done it and sewn this hole too small and it's really tight. Like it's quite painful. It's really tight on your hand, so it's not tight at all. There's plenty of, you can tell I can get my finger in there, plenty of room. That looks really cool. So now I'm just going to flip it back the other way. And we can just finish that off because we know that that fits. And I can actually just tie that together because it's right there. I don't normally tie knots in crochet, but hey, it's right there. How could you resist? So we're going to sew in our ends. Pick somewhere. Oops. That's way out of camera. Sorry guys. Sew in the end. So I do actually have lots of yarn left because I had way more than what I needed. I think I said 12 to 14 inches. I actually had a lot more than that. And that's why I didn't tell you the amount that I had, because I've got way too much. And I could tell when I looked at it. Righty, so that one's been sewn in, so I can snip that one off. And you want to sew in those ones and those ones. Flip it the other way. And which way did it go? That way. Probably would fit you the other way. I'm going to turn it. So here's my glove. Of course I've got to sew in that end. Here's my glove. If you want to make that really tight around there, oh actually no you can't because you wouldn't get your hand in, would you? You could thread some elastic here. Maybe that would not be nice and that would cinch that in a little bit. I was just going to see what it did if I went that way. Okay, so it's like super long on the fingers. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I just need to sew my ends off camera. That's all good. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's super easy and it works out really quick. There is also a hat, if you missed it at the beginning, there's a hat that goes with this pattern and that works up really quick as well. Same sort of thing. It's just when you're sewing it up, don't leave a hole and you just gather the top. So a really great pattern. I would love to see what you've been up to. Share your creations on our Facebook page and also you can tag me on Instagram. I love seeing your creations. I love seeing what coloured yarn you've used and what type of yarn. Yeah, and what you've done with my pattern. So thanks for watching guys. I would like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. Without those people I would not be able to bring you these video tutorials. If you would like to support me on Patreon and become a patron, you can do so from as little as $1 a month, but you can Pledge more if you want to. We do have lots of giveaways coming up. Depending on the amount that you pledge, you can have behind the scenes access. You'll have photos. There'll be early links to video tutorials, so you'll get to see video tutorials before anyone else. If you could support me on Patreon, that would be awesome. And I would like you to subscribe, because we always have video tutorials coming out, and that way you won't miss out. So thank you for subscribing. Please share it with your friends, and until next time, happy crochet!